We're going to take you live to Sydney now, where Commonwealth Games Australia's CEO, Craig Phillips, is speaking.
Show a bit of resolve and keep moving forward. So yeah, we're still very disappointed by the decision last week. Came out of the blue, we were blindsided. So most people would not like to be treated that way. It's disrespectful. And that's how we're treated last week. Our movement, our athletes were disrespected.
Have you had any contact in the last 10 days with anyone from the Victorian government or the Victorian Games organising committee? And have you seen their figures? Do you know where they got that figure? They're sharing that figure?
We've not seen the numbers. In terms of contact, my only, I guess if you call it official communication with the Victorian government was with Tim Ada on the morning of the announcement when he told me, it was within an hour and a half before the announcement by Dan Andrews. Obviously the lawyers are talking, we're in the room from time to time, and I obviously can't shed light on that, but apart from those discussions, it's been pretty much silence.
Do you expect compensation, obviously, if it comes to that, and that figure is going to be in the hundreds of millions, right?
Yeah, a bit more complicated than that. There are multiple parties involved in this from our side. So the CGF, of course, as the owners of the Games, their subsidiaries, CGFP, Commonwealth Games Partnerships, Federation Partnerships, and us as an entity as well. So all of us had some expectation through a host contract, which is essentially, as Dan Andrews' words last week, has been terminated. So we expect, to be made whole essentially by what was in that contract. I cannot reveal to you what that is because those numbers are already confidential.
Are you aware of a pitch to visit Victoria in 2021 about running the Games in 3 regional cities plus Melbourne that would have had a price tag of 1.4 billion? Are you aware of that pitch?
Yes, I am. I wrote it.
What can you tell us about that?
We looked at a model where if they wanted to spread the benefit across more than just Melbourne, didn't want to repeat Melbourne 2006, and we can understand that. As how we could do that and bring some benefit to regional communities. So certainly we did make that pitch. We got a hearing from some that's Visit Victoria, and the more senior people there didn't really want to talk to us about it, and then went off and pitched something else. So.
And so is there any scope to revisit that, to try to revisit that? What sort of response do you have in regards to that?
Well, I don't think it's worth us trying to prosecute it in Victoria. It's made pretty clear by the Premier last week that he's wiped his hands of the Games. So yeah, I think it'd be a wasted conversation down in Melbourne. But that model can apply elsewhere. There are other models that can apply. Reality is the Games are flexible. We have a strategic roadmap that makes them flexible, which means that we find a host that we match the Games to.
The figures are so far apart, aren't they? They're so far apart. I mean, how do you reconcile that? What's going on here?
I'm not sure it's for me to reconcile them because we haven't put the number out there that's $6 to $7 billion for the cost of the Games. That's not our number.
What would you describe it as?
The
use
number,
of that figure,
sorry?
what would you describe that as? The use of that figure,
yeah.
What would you describe it as in this discussion?
I don't know how to characterise it really. Obviously it supported a narrative of cancelling the Games, and maybe those numbers exist. We don't know. We've not seen them.
If the Games were to be still held in Australia, what city or state do you reckon is the most viable option?
Look, obviously any capital city in Australia could host the Games. We know that, and certainly some of the smaller cities could also contribute to the hosting of the Games. But at this point in time, preemptive for me to call out any of them in particular, but we know that all have that capability.
You must be particularly disappointed with Chris Minns. I mean, there's an Olympic park set up, ready to go. I mean, that must be particularly boring.
Look, I can understand the response from Premier Minns, as I can understand the response from the other premiers. They were presented with an eye-watering $6 to $7 billion price tag. If I was them, probably in their shoes, I probably would have responded the same way. So I can't blame any of the other premiers for responding the way they have. But as I said, we still think there is an opportunity at some point to have a sensible conversation.
When are you going to try and have those sensible conversations? When are you going to reach out to, say, Chris Minns and say,
our priority right now is the team that Ellie is leading to Trinbago. We owe it to the 76 athletes going to those Games to look after them, give them a great experience, not have this overshadow their experience, because many of them are just starting their journey, and we want them to make sure they start off the right way. So that's important for us right now. There's the settlement of negotiations of the exit of the contract, and then we'll move on to look at potential others.
What's the deadline? You can't, like, athletes obviously need to plan, people need to book things, and when do you need a decision to be made?
Yeah. While we're in Trinidad, we will be having conversations with the CGF, who essentially own the event. So we'll need to work with them to look at what that looks like, what their numbers look like, what their deadlines are. But again, some of that is very much will be reflected by the potential hosts that we have lined up, because some will have shorter timeframes required than others. So it's a bit hard to say what that is until we have those conversations with the CGF. And we also need to understand from the CGF what their level of tolerance is in terms of scale of games, flexibility about the delivery model and all of that. So again, we have that opportunity in the next week to have those detailed discussions.
On compensation, how...
Well, there you go. Craig Phillips, the Commonwealth Games Australia CEO, insisting that the Games will go on in 2026, still searching for a host city though, but says he and the Commonwealth Games athletes have been disrespected by the Andrews government. Lawyers on both sides are in discussions about that, but it seems like the relationship between the Commonwealth Games and Victoria, the Victorian government, has completely broken down. So a very interesting press conference there. We'll have more for you throughout the afternoon.